Night on Earth always carried a strange softness, a kind of quiet that made even the most dangerous souls seem gentle under the moon. General Evelyn Hart, known to most humans as Evie, and to a classified handful as the contingency plan, sat on her porch steps in that softness, her elbows on her knees, chin lowered, breathing in the scent of pine and soil, and the faint lingering trace of lavender shampoo that clung to the fur of the dog sleeping at her feet. Luna shifted once, letting out a little huff, the kind dogs make when they dream of running. Evie's lips curved. She didn't smile often, but Luna always managed to drag something warm out of her. The galaxy, of course, would never understand this warmth. They always assumed humans were made of soft things, emotion, sentiment, nostalgia. But humans were made of something older, something steel-threaded, something that softened itself only for love. And Luna had been the last living creature Evie allowed herself to love without reserve. When the first tremor of the approaching shuttle shook the loose gravel beneath the steps, Luna's ears perked, then flattened. Evie straightened, placing a calm hand on the dog's back. "Easy," she murmured. "It's just a diplomatic retrieval." The words tasted false. She wasn't scheduled for a retrieval. And the Empire never visited rural Montana at night. Luna pressed herself closer to Evie's leg as the shuttle descended, its metallic hull reflecting the moonlight in cold slashes. 3 alien silhouettes stepped out, Threxians with their crystalline facial plates and that irritating bureaucratic swagger. Evie stood, expression smooth, voice even. "If this is about the trade sanctions, you're 2 weeks early." Humor, a soft blade, the first line of defense. The lead Threxian clicked its mandibles in what it probably imagined was a polite bow. "General Hart. Unregistered biological entity detected. Mandatory disposal executed." It held up a datapad filled with clinical codes Evie already knew she would hate. Behind her, Luna tensed. Evie didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe in a way a normal person would notice. "Repeat that," she said gently. "Mandatory disposal," the Threxian repeated, as if discussing trash collection. The creature lunged at a patrol vessel during a routine biometric sweep. "Protocol requires." A shot cracked through the night. A sound too sharp, too cruel, too final. Evie turned so slowly it felt like the air thickened around her. Luna's body lay on the dirt, twitching once before going terribly, horribly still. Smoke curled from the barrel of the Threxian sidearm. He had fired as casually as if swatting a fly. Her dog! Her Luna! A softness inside Evie shattered with the quiet efficiency of glass under pressure. She knelt beside the small, warm body, fingers trembling as they touched Luna's collar. The simple silver ring she'd bought years ago at a roadside market. The engraving caught the moonlight. "Thank you for keeping me human." She didn't cry. Evie Hart had cried only once in the last decade, and she'd promised herself she wouldn't do it again unless she had good reason. Tonight, she had excellent reason. "Why?" she asked softly, still stroking Luna's ears, still kneeling in the dirt as if nothing catastrophic had happened. "Protocol," the officer said again, bored. The creature exhibited defensive hostility. "You humans form irrational emotional attachments. It interferes with judgment. We did you a favor, truly." Evie's heart remained steady. Her face a serene, unreadable mask. Only her eyes changed, darkening, deepening, sharpening in a way that made the younger Threxian take one frightened step back. "May I see the authorization?" she asked. Polite. Sweet. Terrifying. The officer lifted the datapad again. Evie rose slowly. When she reached for the device, her hand passed by it and closed instead around the Threxian's wrist. A gentle grip. Almost affectionate. Bones cracked like twigs. The Threxian screamed, collapsing. Evie didn't raise her voice above a whisper. "You executed my dog without cause," she said in a tone soft enough to soothe a child. "You trespassed on Earth without consent. And now you're telling me you did me a favor." The remaining aliens scrambled, hands on weapons. Evie raised one finger. "Don't." Something in her voice slid beneath their skin like ice water. They froze. Evie crouched, not by Luna now, but by the whimpering Threxian. "There is a rule on Earth," she whispered, brushing dirt gently from Luna's fur with her free hand. You don't kill someone's dog. You don't hurt what they love. You don't touch their heart and expect to walk away. She stood, her movements fluid, controlled, terrifying in their grace. Collect your officer, she said. Leave my land. Tell your emperor he has 72 hours to issue an apology. The Threxians hesitated. Evie's eyes flicked toward them. Just a flicker, barely emotion. They ran. When they were gone, the silence returned. But it wasn't soft anymore. It was the kind of silence that followed storm warnings, the kind that made the wind feel cautious as it touched the edges of the world. Evie gathered Luna gently, holding the still warm body against her chest. The night blurred at the edges, not from tears but from an emotion far older, deeper, and crueler. She walked to the hill behind her house, the hill Luna had chosen as her favorite spot. The earth was soft, the grass cold. Evie dug with her hands until her nails filed down against stones and roots. She placed Luna in the ground with the kind of reverence the galaxy had forgotten how to give anything. The moon hung above her like a witness. You were the last good thing I had, she murmured, brushing her thumb over the collar before setting it beside the small body. You kept me steady. You kept me gentle. Her voice wavered. Just once. Then the wind stilled completely, as if the planet itself was listening. Evie rose, caked in soil, coated in grief, transformed by something both violent and quiet. The softness she had carried all her life folded inward, leaving behind a stillness dangerous enough to change the trajectory of civilizations. She walked into her house. Lights flickered on as her biometric signature passed through the system. Doors slid open. Shelves unlatched. Lockboxes parted. A wall panel hissed down, revealing weapon racks, data slates, encoded keys, and a black coat she had sworn never to wear again. She put it on slowly, smoothing the fabric over her shoulders. The air shifted around her, as though recognizing an old command. She opened a drawer and pulled out a slim, leather-bound notebook. On the first page, in elegant handwriting, was a single line: "People who hurt my dog." She hadn't touched this notebook in 10 years. Tonight, she clicked her pen, expression calm as moonlight, and wrote 3 new words. The Galactic Empire. Outside, thunder rumbled across a clear sky. The planet seemed to shudder. Evie holstered 2 pistols, strapped knives to her boots, and slipped Luna's collar into her pocket. It chimed faintly, a soft metallic ring, as if echoing a heartbeat that should still be there. Her comm panel blinked. A message from the Earth Council, frantic, urgent. Evie, the diplomat stammered. We just received a report from a Threxian patrol, something about your dog? We need clarification before diplomatic action escalates. Evie, where are you going? Evie tied her hair back, her voice gentle, steady. To get an apology. And if they don't give one? She smiled, a soft, devastating thing. They will. The diplomat hesitated. And if the Emperor refuses? Evie glanced toward the sky. Somewhere up there, ships slept under metal skies, aliens rested behind shields, and a galactic empire thought itself untouchable. Her smile deepened into something lethal. Then the galaxy will learn, she said softly. What happens when you kill the wrong woman's dog? The comm crackled with silence. Evie stepped outside, the wind pulling at her coat as she walked toward the landing pad where her ship hummed awake. She paused only once, looking back at the small mound of earth beneath the moonlight. Goodbye, girl, she whispered. Mama's got work. The ship door opened, and the stars seemed to lean away as she stepped inside. The Galactic Empire always claimed to appreciate order. Clean lines, predictable rhythms, perfectly labeled protocols. Yet nothing about the next 48 hours followed any order they recognized. Their first warning came not from a distress beacon or a diplomatic complaint, but from a trembling Kilii communications officer who burst into the Imperial control hub with all 6 of its eyes leaking terrified blue tears. A human is coming, it squeaked, hovering erratically. A very polite one. The Threxian supervisor clicked irritably. Humans are always polite. It is their evolutionary flaw. But the Kilii clutched its datapad like a shield. Not like this one, it whispered, She smiled at me through the transmission. I felt my ancestors scream. No one believed it, of course. Not until the recordings were analyzed. The first audio file played soft jazz, smooth and mellow, as if curated from a late-night Earth cafe. A woman's voice followed, gentle, clear, unhurried. "Good evening, Imperial friends. I will be visiting your nearest orbital station shortly. Please prepare tea, or whatever your equivalent is. I'm fond of hospitality." The room filled with uneasy shifting. Jazz was never a good sign. Humans played jazz when they were about to do something catastrophically unpredictable. The Threxian supervisor replayed the message, narrowing his crystalline lenses. "She says she's coming alone," he muttered. "Why would a human travel alone?" A Zurothan war chief, tall and plated like a living tank, flexed his forearms and laughed. "Let her come. One human is no threat to a Zurothan garrison." "Tell that to the last Zurothan garrison that underestimated Earth," someone murmured. No one responded. Meanwhile, across the void, Evie sat in her small ship, legs crossed, Luna's collar resting on the console like a quiet reminder of everything she'd lost. Her face reflected in the glass showed no rage now, only focus sharp enough to cut through metal. The stars stretched across her windshield in thin silver streaks as she entered hyperspace, and the hum of the engines felt like a heartbeat she'd borrowed to keep going. She whispered to the collar, thumb brushing the worn engraving. "I know, girl. I'm being calm. This is me calm." The ship eased out of hyperspace near the Imperial Station Varkos 12, a massive orbital structure glittering with thousands of lights. Her vessel, small enough to be mistaken for a shuttle, fast enough to outrun cruisers, glided toward the docking bay. Inside the station, Threxian bureaucrats lined up nervously, their postures stiff with forced authority. Kilii guards wobbled in place, whispering prayers to avoid stress-induced fainting. Zurothan warriors cracked their knuckles, ready to assert dominance with the confidence of creatures who had never met a human willing to dismantle a problem by hand. Evie exited the ship with her black coat flowing behind her like a storm slipping through the air. She carried a small duffel bag. The bag clinked. None of the aliens liked the clink. A Kilii guard floated forward with a scanning device. "For security," it squeaked. Evie smiled pleasantly. "Oh, of course. I encourage safety." The scan began. The device beeped decisively and displayed the contents. 37 firearms of varied calibers, 13 blades, 6 explosive charges, 4 unidentified cylindrical tools, 3 devices that triggered security warnings, 2 vials marked experimental, and a pencil. Why a pencil?" the Kilii whispered, trembling. Evie leaned in conspiratorially. "Sometimes paperwork gets intense." The Kilii passed out on the spot. The Threxian supervisor approached with forced dignity. "General Hart, you are not authorized." "I don't need authorization," Evie said gently. "I need answers." His mandibles rattled. "We regret that your domesticated creature was terminated. Protocol dictated." Evie held up a hand. The entire bay fell silent, as if the gesture carried weight the gravitational stabilizers hadn't calibrated for. "Let's not pretend. You killed my dog. You invaded my planet. You dismissed my request for an apology. And now, I'm here to fix the misunderstanding." A Zurothan war chief stepped forward, towering over her. "Human," he boomed. "Your threats are wind. We fear nothing small." Evie's smile warmed. "That's wonderful," she said. "Then this won't hurt your pride." The chief lunged with a roar. Evie sidestepped so casually, it looked like she'd merely shifted her weight. One flick of her wrist, one twist of his arm, and the Zurothan hit the floor with a thundering crash that echoed through the docking bay. Gasps rippled. Several Kilii fainted again. The chief groaned. "Impossible." Evie crouched beside him. "No," she whispered. "Just human." The Threxians scrambled backward as Evie rose. Her coat fluttered like a shadow eager to follow her into violence. "I came to talk," she said. "But I can see we're starting with demonstrations instead." A squad of Zurothan elites charged. Evie met them with terrifying economy. disarming one, flipping another, sliding across the polished floor to sweep the legs of a third. Not one fatal blow. Not even one lasting injury. She precise struck nerves, joints, pressure points, dismantling them gently, as though violence were a language she'd mastered long ago and now spoke with affectionate fluency. The station alarms wailed. Evie calmly adjusted her ponytail. "Now that the warm-up is done," she said, "shall we discuss your Emperor's apology?" Shaking, the Threxian supervisor stammered. "The Emperor does not issue apologies." She tilted her head. "Then he must learn." Emergency lights tinted the bay red. Soldiers rushed forward but halted when Evie simply looked at them, her gaze steady, unwavering, and disturbingly polite. She walked deeper into the station. Aliens pulled back as if an invisible force commanded them. "General Hart," the intercom crackled. "State your purpose or be detained." "Detain me," Evie replied, her tone honey-sweet, "and I'll assume you're refusing peace." A door slid open, revealing a crowded command center. Screens flickered with data, reports of disruptions in Imperial territories, intercepted chatter about a lone human approaching armed fortifications, rumors of a myth called the Baba Yaga, whispered in trembling voices by species who shouldn't know the phrase. Evie's voice broke the tension. "You should listen to your own recordings. You already know why I'm here." A young Kilii officer floated toward her timidly. Is it true you dismantled an entire Earth regiment with a spoon?" Evie blinked. "Spoons are versatile." Murmurs erupted. "But I'm not here for spoons. I'm here for justice. Luna deserves more than a checkbox on a protocol report." Fear thickened the air. The aliens stared at her, seeing not a human woman, but a quiet catastrophe wrapped in politeness. The supervisor swallowed. "If we contact the Emperor, and he refuses?" Evie's smile held no warmth. "Then you should evacuate." "Evacuate where?" She paused, letting the silence answer. Then she leaned over the console and pressed her palm to the station's holomap, highlighting the Imperial capital. "Because I will be there within the day." Her voice softened to a whisper that carried more threat than any shouted declaration. "And your Emperor will learn what happens when he takes away the only thing that kept me gentle." The command center froze. Behind Evie, the station doors slammed shut and locked. Someone had activated security lockdown. She turned slowly. Her smile deepened. "Oh," she murmured. "We're doing it this way." And the lights flickered into darkness. Panic, as it turned out, spread faster than hyperspace signals. The moment Evie stepped into the darkened hallway, alarms shrieked through Varkos, 12 like a dying metal beast. Red lights pulsed along the walls, painting her face in alternating shadows that made her look less like a visitor and more like an omen. She took a slow breath. Luna's collar tapped softly against her coat with each step, the sound gentle and painfully out of place amid the chaos. Behind sealed doors, alien officials argued in frantic bursts. The Threxians insisted humans were overreactive mammals. The Zurothans argued this human was clearly some kind of disguised war engine. The Kilii simply floated in circles crying, convinced the end of the galaxy was nigh. Every species had a theory, but none of them understood the truth. Evie wasn't violence incarnate, she was grief sharpened into purpose. She reached the central security artery, a long corridor lined with shimmering containment fields. The station's automated system projected a holographic face, neutral, expressionless, designed to counter biological intimidation. It scanned her calmly. "General Evelyn Hart," it announced. "You are unauthorized in this sector." Evie smiled politely. "I know." She pressed her palm against the panel. The system sparked, hissed, and died instantly. Sparks danced across her fingertips as if technology itself bowed in acknowledgement. The containment fields flickered, collapsed, and the corridor fell silent except for the dull echo of retreating guards. Evie continued forward, each step deliberate. Somewhere in the station's core, the Emperor's direct line awaited. She planned to speak to him not with weapons but with truth, a far deadlier force. She just needed to clear a path through the predictably inconvenient Imperial bravado. Halfway down the corridor, 3 Zurothan warriors rushed her, bellowing thunderous war cries. Evie lifted her chin, her expression more disappointed than angry. Really? Again? They attacked with synchronized force, a technique honed through generations of battle. Evie flowed between them like liquid shadow, catching one by the wrist, flipping another with a pivot of her heel, and sweeping the third into the wall without breaking rhythm. The thud echoed long after they fell. She didn't look back. If anything, she looked tired. Violence, even justified violence, drained her in ways she hadn't felt since the last war Earth barely survived. She brushed her thumb across Luna's collar in her pocket. "This is for you, girl," she whispered. "Mama's almost done." As she approached the security terminal, a new voice crackled through hidden speakers. Thin, quivering, unmistakably terrified. "Human, cease movement. You have entered a restricted Imperial zone. Protective drones will deploy." Evie tilted her head. "Drones? You think drones will stop me?" The voice wavered. They might slow you down." Evie gave a sympathetic sigh. "Sweetheart, I don't need to be fast." The ceiling opened like a mechanical iris, releasing a dozen sleek drones with humming plasma cores. They surrounded her in a precise formation, weapons ready. The air vibrated with their threat. Evie didn't move. Instead, she knelt, as if giving them a chance. The drones hesitated. Then they fired. Blue-white plasma burst from every direction. But Evie was no longer where they fired. She slid low, pivoted, and grabbed a service pipe jutting from the wall. One swing, one crack, and 3 drones exploded in a shower of sparks. The others recalibrated. Too slow. Evie somersaulted through the center, twisting her weight to redirect one drone into another. 2 collided and shattered. She launched herself upward, kicking off the wall, flipping over the remaining drones and sending them crashing into the deck. When the smoke cleared, she dusted her coat. "You see?" she murmured. "I told you." A trembling Killy-Eye technician peeked from behind a console, saw the devastation, and promptly fainted. Evie stepped over him gently. She reached the command node, a spherical room glowing with holograms of Imperial territories. Maps flickered, dotted with warning signs. Every few seconds, alerts blared. Sightings of a human woman on other stations, reports of soldiers fleeing, whispers that the Baba Yaga had awakened. Rumors always spread faster than truth, but in Evie's case, rumor and truth had begun to merge. She tapped the console. "Connect me to the Emperor." The station AI sputtered. "Connection denied. Authorization denied." Evie removed Luna's collar and set it on the console. The sensors recognized an encoded signature within it, one she hadn't activated since the day Earth decided peace was preferable, but never guaranteed. The collar glowed softly, humming with dormant intelligence. A coded message pulsed across the screen. "Operation Huthfire. Stage 2 access granted." Evie blinked once. "Good girl," she murmured. The holographic interface shifted, rearranged itself, and a secure channel opened. The Emperor's image appeared, towering, adorned in ceremonial armor, flanked by advisors who wore expressions ranging from disdain to barely concealed terror. His 6 crimson eyes narrowed at the sight of her. "So," he said, voice resonant with arrogance, "you are the human causing disorder in my empire." Evie folded her hands politely. "General Evelyn Hart. My dog's name was Luna. You killed her." A ripple of discomfort passed through the advisors. The Emperor, however, scoffed. "You bring war over a beast?" Evie's jaw tightened, her voice still soft. "You killed the last thing that kept me kind." The Emperor leaned forward. "This empire will not bend to sentimentality." "Good," Evie replied. "Because sentimentality isn't what's coming." The Emperor barked a laugh. "You think you alone can challenge the Empire?" Evie didn't answer him. Instead, she pressed a button on the console. The holographic map zoomed outward, showing Imperial space. One by one, dozens of red markers ignited across the starfields. Imperial shipyards shutting down. Weapon systems locking unexpectedly. Communications breaking. Power grids flickering. The Emperor froze. His advisor whispered, horrified, "What did she do?" Evie kept her gaze steady. Luna wasn't just a dog. She was a reconnaissance system. A living neural AI designed to observe vulnerabilities without detection. While she sat at my feet, while you dismissed her as a primitive pet, she was mapping your empire. The Emperor stared. Evie leaned closer, her voice barely above breath. And every weakness she found? Every flaw? Every hidden door? I now have access to all of them. Shock rippled through the imperial court. Evie lifted the collar, eyes glow pulsing like a heartbeat. You killed my dog, she said softly. But you awakened something far worse. The Emperor's eyes flared in fury. You dare. A massive alarm blared through the feed, red lights flashing behind him. Your high command just lost control of your capital defense grid, Evie whispered. That's stage 3. The Emperor roared orders, but the chaos behind him only grew. Evie watched with a calmness more terrifying than rage. Then the transmission crackled, distorted, weakening. Evie's eyes narrowed. Someone was cutting the connection from her side. The lights dimmed. The console went dead. The last thing she heard before the screen blacked out was a single chilling broadcast across every Imperial frequency. Baba Yaga is coming. The Imperial capital had always been described as indestructible, a glittering sprawl of obsidian towers, woven with energy conduits and shield lines strong enough to repel meteor storms. But as Evie's ship descended through the smoldering clouds, it looked less like a fortress, and more like a creature stunned by its own mortality. Fires burned along the eastern spires where defense grids had failed. Sirens wailed through the atmosphere like mourning birds. Every tremor in the city below told the same story. Luna had done her job far better than the Empire ever imagined. Evie stood at the cockpit window, her reflection faint against the chaos below. Her coat fluttered in the overheated draft of the burning sky, and the collar in her hand glowed softly, pulsing with a calm intelligence that contrasted sharply with the world unraveling beneath her. Almost over, she whispered, running her thumb across the engraving. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt focused, sharpened, inevitability made flesh. The automated docking bays refused her entry, so she landed the ship on the Emperor's private balcony, an action so unthinkable that the bay's guards froze for 3 full seconds before remembering they were supposed to act. They charged. Evie stepped through the steam rising from her ship, and her silhouette alone stole their courage. She didn't draw a weapon. She simply walked. The first guard lunged. Evie caught him by the forearm, redirected his weight, and set him down gently enough that it almost resembled kindness. The next 2 hesitated, then dropped their rifles and fled. Word had finally reached even the densest corners of the Empire. At the entrance to the throne corridor, a massive pair of golden doors trembled under the pressure of frantic locking mechanisms. Evie placed her palm against the metal. "Open," she murmured. The collar hummed, fed its encoded authority into the system, and the doors split obediently apart. Inside, the throne hall stretched like a cavern of stars, its walls embedded with constellations grafted from ancient imperial myth. The Emperor stood at the far end, framed by a trembling escort of advisors and honor guards, who clutched their weapons, but looked ready to abandon their posts at the slightest raised eyebrow from Evie. His armor gleamed, its crimson plates etched with victories he believed eternal. But his eyes, those 6 burning eyes, betrayed a truth he refused to speak. He was afraid. Evie walked down the center aisle, her footsteps echoing in steady, merciless rhythm. The Emperor lifted a hand, signaling his guards to stand down. They obeyed instantly. Evie did not acknowledge them. Her gaze remained fixed on the man who had, with one indifferent order, torn apart the last thread tethering her to gentleness. "You have caused chaos across my empire," the Emperor said, his voice thinner than the armor made it appear. "You have dismantled systems we spent millennia perfecting. You have disrupted the order of hundreds of worlds." Evie stopped a few steps from the throne. "You caused this," she said. Her tone carried no fire, no ice, only clarity. "You killed my dog." One of the advisors scoffed, perhaps to mask fear. Evie turned her head slightly, and the sound died on his tongue. The Emperor drew in a slow breath, composing himself. "You threaten the stability of galaxies over an animal?" he demanded. Evie's expression barely shifted. No, she said softly. I threaten nothing. I correct what you broke. I honor what you dismissed. I remind you that small things matter. That love matters. That life matters. Her fingers tightened around the collar. You, Emperor, forgot that. He straightened. I do not answer to sentiment. Then answer to consequence. Power surged along the hall as the collar activated, projecting a holographic cascade of imperial war crimes across the walls: massacres, forced annexations, biological experiments. Luna had recorded more than vulnerabilities. She had recorded truth. Advisors gasped, horrified. Guards whispered in disbelief. The Emperor staggered back, rage overtaking fear. How dare you expose private imperial protocol? He roared. Evie met his fury with calm. Justice isn't private. He lunged forward, not physically, though he looked as if he wished he could, but through a command gesture that activated the throne's integrated weapon systems. Turrets descended from the ceiling, charging with a rising whine. The floor panels shifted, preparing to fire a containment field strong enough to immobilize starships. Evie closed her eyes for a single breath. When she opened them, the world sharpened. The turrets fired. She moved faster than their calculations could predict. A twist, a slide, a leap, her coat trailing like a living shadow. She grabbed a support beam, swung upward, landed between two turrets, and disabled both with precise strikes from the heel of her boot. Plasma bolts scorched the air behind her. She rolled, flipped, redirected the energy panel with the force of her palm, and sent the containment surge exploding harmlessly into the ceiling. Sparks rained. The hall shook. When the smoke settled, Evie stood unharmed, her breathing steady. The Emperor stared as if seeing a ghost forged from defiance. Evie walked toward him again, slowly, purposefully. I didn't come to destroy your empire, she said. You're doing that on your own. He reached for a hidden blade, sleek, ceremonial, charged with plasma. He slashed. Evie caught his arm mid-swing with a gentleness that felt more terrifying than brute force. She held it there, steady, unshakable. Please stop, she whispered. Not a plea. A warning wrapped in tenderness. The Emperor's blade clattered to the floor. His armor seemed to sag under the weight of understanding. I want one thing, Evie said softly, her grip loosening. An apology. His advisors stared in disbelief. The Emperor trembled, not from weakness but realization. He lowered his head. His voice cracked. I apologize. For the dog. The hall fell silent. Evie stepped back, studying him. The apology didn't heal anything. It didn't bring Luna back. But it recognized the wound. The galaxy shifted in that moment, not because an emperor apologized, but because a human accepted it. She nodded once. Thank you. Then her wrist interface lit with an urgent signal. A flicker of unease crossed her features. She activated it. A hologram blinked into life. Earth command, breathless. General, Evie, there's been a development. Your actions triggered something unexpected. Multiple empires. Multiple species. They're all moving. And they're not moving against you. Evie's eyes narrowed. Explain. The officer swallowed. They're coming to Earth. Not to attack, but to ask you for help. Evie looked toward the burning skyline of the imperial capital. Luna's collar pulsed bright once. Of course they are, she murmured. And the flames outside glowed brighter, as if the galaxy itself were calling her name.